WFUZ-TV, Coastal Alabama, Northwest Florida, the People's Voice.
Hi, I'm Blair Castro. Welcome to WFUZ-TV, the People's Voice podcast. I'm here today with Thomas Jenkins, and we have a special guest in the studio, Mr. Joshua McKee, who's running to represent us in Alabama's 1st Congressional District. Mr. McKee, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
So I'll start by asking, tell us why you decided to run for Congress and why right now at this point in time? What compelled you to jump into this election?
Well, right now we have a lot of leadership up in D.C. And last November, the American people gave President Trump and the Congressional Republicans a decisive win. And with that, they said, hey, we want to turn around and have fiscal responsibility. We want to end fraud, waste, and abuse. Well, over time and over history, I have seen where we have leaders that are up there and they forget why they're there. They don't always continue the path that they spoke about on their campaign trail, and then they end up forgetting why they're there. So, yes, we can turn around and vote for new elected officials, but the status quo continues, and I've gotten tired of that status quo. When you turn around and you have someone up there for you, and they don't do what they said they're going to do, or you see them as, this is my representative, but I can't get a hold of them. I can't reach them. They don't know what's going on in the community, and I got tired of it. So instead of sitting on the sidelines, quiet, and understanding that I served for 25 years, and I know what it means to serve, and I know that there's a personal sacrifice that comes with that. You have to put yourself second when you're serving. So I decided that it's time to go up and represent Alabama and America with a servant's mentality and understand that it's time that we have someone up there that puts America and Alabama first.
So you talked a little bit about how you served for 25 years. Can you tell us more about your background in terms of your service and your experience, and specifically your military experience?
Sure. So I did 25 years, 7 months, and 25 days of service. I went in the military, went in with 11 X-rays, what it was called at the time. And I ended up being 11 Mike, was mechanized infantry. That lasted about 3 months before I realized that I meant for way more than this. So I went to Special Forces selection. We had a class of 343. I was roster number 243. And there was 23 of us that got selected. Turned around from that class, we had, I think there was 3 of us from that class that got Green Berets. Became a Green Beret, ended up with 3rd Special Forces Group. Right around 9/11 is when I signed in the group. And we turned around shortly after that, had multiple deployments, and went all over the world. I mean, I saw a lot. Got to do a lot, then turned around and had a break in service and went work at the State Department, the Pentagon for a couple of years, then turned around and went back in to the National Guard, 20th Special Forces Group, where I finished out my career there. While I was working with the State Department, I got to go to numerous countries all over the world. And you see a lot that goes on in other countries. And you come back to America and you realize you're the greatest nation in the world. And that needs to stay that way. I was in combat numerous times, Bronze Star, firefights, all types of horrific things that you just don't wish anyone to go through. But with being in the military, retiring as a master sergeant, being a team sergeant, you realize how important people's lives are. And that every decision you make as a leader can impact those individuals and their families. So as a leader in Congress, you need to understand that every bill that you're going to pass, everything that you're going to do for your constituents impacts their families. And it's important to have leaders that understand what it means to make those kind of decisions.
I absolutely agree. And I was going to ask, what are some of the countries you've been deployed to, just out of curiosity?
I've been to about 50 countries.
A lot of the Middle East, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Tajikistan, I've been there. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kurdistan, Iran, Iraq, all over the place.
I think it's important for candidates to have some sort of global perspective so they don't get so insulated in their mind of like, this little area is what's going on. This is my bubble, so to speak, and this is the only thing that matters, because that isn't necessarily all that matters. And I sort of felt that way when I ran for office, because I was in the Middle East as well, though not in combat. I was there studying, doing religious conflict mediation at Hebrew University, and I got to go around to a few different countries in the Middle East, and it was such a short-lived but eye-opening experience that I thought really shaped me, just being there for a short amount of time, and it gave me this different perspective so that I could come back home and deal with problems of people right here in Gulf Shores, or right here, on Pensacola where I'm from, or this little area, but think back, hey, we handled huge problems on a big global scale here, we can do this here, and I think that helps form your mind a little better in some capacity.
Yeah, that's true. Over in Afghanistan, I'll use that one, it's common that a lot of people can relate to. We had a lot of incidents where the U.S. would build bridges and they'd be blown up. And going through the infrastructure and the planning to try to get these things back in place, yet understanding the security that needs to take place to protect those individuals. We had a lot of compassion that came from the local Afghans, and to see the kids, they were always excited to see us. We always had warm welcomes anywhere we went. It's absolutely heart-wrenching to understand how we withdrew from that country, and that's just something that it's unforgivable. And what the Biden administration did, it's just horrendous. I can't believe we did that to those people.
That was sort of buried in the media too. I actually tried to stay apprised, but he told me about that when it happened. I was like, what, really? They didn't really talk about that a lot until now when the second administration came around.
Well, again, it goes into the wasteful spending that the Americans are tired of. And the amount of money in our equipment that was left over there is astronomical. And to turn around and not just look at the equipment that we left there, the burden on the taxpayers that we have to now replace that equipment, but we just turned around and left enough equipment there that we literally stood up an entire militant force against us with our own equipment by doing that. That's treason. You literally just gave top-of-the-line equipment, from aircraft to vehicles, wheeled vehicles, to the 600,000 M4s. That's a small army. That's the size of some countries. But it's a shame that was done. I'm glad we have President Trump in place now, and that kind of leadership, it doesn't matter what they have, they're not going to be stupid enough to use any of that. We'll quickly wipe them off the face of the earth if they try to go down that road.
It seems like that pretty much made us have to posture in an almost offensive position globally to assert strength where that made us look so weak, leaving that much equipment behind. And I don't think that the gravity has been emphasized enough in the media of that incident.
No, it wasn't. We've got a lot of stuff that goes on. With all the travels I've been to, there is some good that I got to experience. It wasn't always war. Went to Ethiopia, and we went in there. We got to do some training and train up Ethiopian, what was their airborne / special forces, and they had a conflict going on in Eritrea at the time. While I was there, we had a Marine flight come over, and the State Department had let us know that they're going to be dropping some humanitarian bundles. We were in the area, so we were able to coordinate and do a military bundle drop and go out and hand some of these items out. And I still remember, I'll never forget it, rolling in to a small town with our Special Forces team. Now, when I tell you it's a small town, it was a grassy knoll area surrounded by mountains and jungle along the outside edge. There was a creek running through it, and then there was your grass and mud huts. There's probably about 7 huts total. Beautiful area. And they didn't have clothes. They had no clothes. So I still remember seeing an older lady up underneath, sitting in a chair up against her front door. And I picked up a blouse out of it and held it up to her. And she smiled and handed it to one of the little kids and ran it over to her. And you could just see her light up with this blouse. She was ecstatic about it. So when you get to do stuff like that, it's not a good comparison, but when you're out there playing golf and you're having one bad swing after another, and then you get that hole in one, well, all those bad swings are all the combat that you have to deal with. But when you get that really good swing, that hole in one, that's the humanitarian portion of it. That's where you're actually saying, hey, this is great, and this is what it's about. It's about freeing the oppressed as a Green Beret and helping people out of oppression. And now we're at a point now in this country where, thank God, we've got President Trump and his strong leadership, that he is lifting the American people up out of an astounding level of inflation, raised costs, things that have just been going on with wasteful spending, having Doge come in, all of the good things that he's done. It feels like he's lifting us up out of oppression that we've had to deal with over the last 4 years.
So I was actually researching this today because, for those watching today, we have started a government shutdown and it's just now occurring. And a lot of people are saying, well, the economy is really bad, inflation is still really high, things are really expensive. But then I think we're forgetting that we're still operating under the Biden administration's budget that they set forward, if I'm not mistaken. So we haven't had a chance to operate under their new budget for the upcoming time. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
So right now, the government did shut down. And what we're looking at is a political grandstand, just theater that is taking place by the Democratic Party. There is a CR that the Republicans put forward. It is a bipartisan CR. It is a 24-page CR that the Democrats voted on 13 times during the Biden administration. And now what they want to do is fill that CR with $1.5 trillion in bloated, wasteful spending. And we're not going to tolerate that. So instead of actually passing the 21-day CR to allow the full year process for appropriations and funding to take place, they want to turn around and make it look like they're fighting President Trump because their liberal policies are so unpopular and Trump is doing so much stuff for us that they've got to look like they're actually trying to fight and do something when they're just playing games. And what they're doing is they're taking money out of their constituents' pockets for this theater event that they're putting on. It only hurts the American people.
I was kind of wondering what exactly, as an outside observer who's I'm more focused on local issues, but I was watching that today and they're fighting really hard for NPR, public broadcasting. That was one issue. But what are the other things they're trying to fight for, allegedly sliding in there?
I want to talk about NPR. So you've got NPR and PBS. And we turned around and last week or a few days ago, Congress turned around and rescinded out of the Trump's $9 billion rescission package. They took $500 million away from the NPR and PBS platform. So this is a left-wing, constantly putting out misinformation and propaganda that does not help the American people. And it was a week ago, around the time of Charlie Kirk's assassination, that I believe it was PBS put out. It's called it's been a minute podcast. And on that podcast, they said that Charlie Kirk was extreme and a bigot. Now, is that the kind of funding that we need to get behind with the American taxpayers? To turn around and have that kind of information going out? That's a subsidy that the Democratic Party wants? No. So funding that kind of nonsense, they don't deserve taxpayer funding. And I'm glad that we turned around and rescinded that $500 million. That's one of the things that they are fighting for, is they want that back. One of the other things that they're to talk about, what you could ask also, there is $50 billion that was already approved for rural hospitals. Now it's $9.2 million for each of Alabama's rural hospitals. Well, the Democrats want that removed from the CR. So they want to take $50 billion away from American people, but they want to spend about $1 trillion to have free health care on 1.2 million illegals. Those that broke the law and came to this country, they want to turn around and give them free health care, yet turn around and collapse our rural hospitals. That's what we're dealing with. They have, I think it was $5 billion that they were complaining about, and some of that funding that they wanted is, if I can remember a couple of them, $3.9 million for the study of, I can't remember the acronym, forgive me, it's LGBTQI+, Democracy for Feminism in the West Balkans. They wanted $2 million for the study of desert locusts in the Horn of Africa. Those
is
are
that a
just
code word for something, or is that literally
that is that's what we're looking at. So when you turn around and you want to stuff a CR that is just meant, it's a clean CR meant to keep the government open, to allow the process to take place. You voted on the thing 13 times during the Biden administration. Now you want to stuff it with this woke nonsense pet projects, knowing that the American people don't want it. That's a problem right there that we're having as American people. That's why they turned around, and the Republicans are not going to go forward with this. And the government, unfortunately, is shut down because of the Democrats. You got Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries that are turning around and pulling this off, and they want to turn around and blame Trump for it. It's not going to happen. American people are a lot smarter than those two.
They pull the NPR PBS card like every election cycle. I remember this going all the way back to when Romney was running against Obama. Oh, they're going to cancel Big Bird if you vote a Republican, and they do it every election cycle.
That's if you think about it, that's their news platform for propaganda.
Oh yeah.
So
I had to actually stop listening because I'm actually I did a little bit of classical music in college, so I enjoyed listening to the music. But when the news would come on, I started hearing the pro-left stuff to pretty much the nth degree, to where that was the only perspective you could hear. I always thought they were kind of neutral, and then it kind of turned really left at some point. I just quit listening in general.
Yeah, we all remember growing up with Sesame Street and Elmo. As kids, they do have good shows, but ultimately, if the direction is to use it as a propaganda arm, American people don't need it.
Right, absolutely.
There were some other entities, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, that arguments are being made that they should be privatized instead of public and funded by the federal government. Similar to that, I'm having a hard time remembering what that was. But that seems to be the argument that people are making. Why has the government been paying for this the whole time? Why is it not privatized in some way? And if you really want these services, in a lot of ways, privatization can actually streamline them and make them way more efficient. So I sort of go back and forth on that, why wouldn't you want to privatize?
Well, they're supposed to be public funded. They do telethons all the time, where we count on viewers and listeners like you. And so, I always ask those people that defend it, when's the last time you gave? When's the last time you donated to NPR or PBS to keep the all here?
Yeah. What I see a lot of, especially while you're running a campaign, coming into politics, stepping into this arena, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And you start seeing a lot of things. One of the things that stands out a lot when it comes to people want to voice their issues and they want people to listen to them. Well, when it comes to elections and you've got someone that's willing to listen to you, you got to make sure that they go to the polls. You got to make sure that they're donating to their candidate to make sure that that person that they want to win is going to get across the finish line. And it's very common for people to say, hey, that's my guy, and I'm going to vote for him. Or, hey, I can't get to the polls this year to vote for you, so I'm going to go ahead and donate to you. That happens very, very little, where people actually donate to anything. Trying to get people to donate to a campaign, everyone wants to vote for you. Ask someone for $1. You can see how difficult it is.
She knows all that.
So, that's that level of frustration where you're like, we're trying to turn the tide for you, and we're stepping up to the plate. It doesn't take thousands of dollars for someone. You're not going up to someone and saying, cut me a check for $1,000. What I want to see is the support that comes in and says, hey, I'm actually going to get involved with my community now at every single level, not just congressional, not Senate, your state governor, but all the way down to your councilman, your mayor. All of those people are important. If you let's take Baldwin County, for example. Right now, Baldwin County is growing at 21.6% population growth. That population growth is predominantly people that are over the age of 65. Okay, so in order to understand that growth is coming in and what that growth means, if you take the population from 2015 and you look at 2040, you're going to have over 400,000 people. You're going to have a 65% increase in population by 2040. Okay, well, if I'm going to turn around and say, what do we need to do to make sure that this growth is done appropriately? I'm going to go to the mayors. I'm going to get with the commissioners and say, what is your complex plan for the next 20 years? How are you going to make sure that this growth is done appropriately? And in order to meet that growth, your infrastructure has to be able to support it. What I'm seeing right now is that plan doesn't exist. So that makes it difficult to say, all right, I understand that you don't want growth at an exponential rate, but I didn't want my kids to grow up either. But I still had to teach them and work with them and make sure I set them up for success. You need to do the same for your communities. Understand that you need a complex plan. And if that complex plan for 20 years is something that you're going to outgrow in 5 years, then you need to understand that it's a living document that you have to work with. That's something that people need to be involved with their local leadership to understand what's going on. Also, that complex plan is what's used by your state leadership and your congressional leadership to get the appropriated funds to build the infrastructure faster than you can outgrow it.
Yeah.
I know Orange Beach's got a beautiful high school. Well, they've already outgrown it. We have 365, don't quote me on the number now, but I think it's around 365 new subdivisions coming in with 17,000 additional students. So we just spent all that money in high school. What happened with the understanding of growth? So are you telling me you're just going to tell kids they got to go to a different school? Those are things that are concerns of people in the district right now and in Baldwin County, is the level of growth and how it's being handled. As a congressman, I'm looking at how do we get the appropriated funds to support your infrastructure. I'm looking at what I can do to help you. But ultimately, if you're not going to get involved with your local leadership and put the people in place that understand what needs to take place for your community and that growth, you're going to have what's called a knee-jerk reaction. Every time a problem comes up, you weren't ready for it, and now you're behind the power curve. You can't live like that. You have to get out in front of it. That is military leadership. That is forward thinking and forward planning. That has to take place. But it's on the people.
That's exactly why I ran for office here in Gulf Shores, because two reasons, two things you actually hit on specifically was the infrastructure not keeping up with the growth and trying to get involved with that. And I actually did try to go get involved with that. We both did, to the county and to the local city level. And you know what happened? Exactly like you said, people were telling you congressional wise, we were not heard, we were not listened to, we were ignored, or we were told one thing and there was no response, and just totally put on the back burner. So we had to begin this podcast and start an action group online and start really raising hell at the meetings, which he's very good at, to be heard. And now, I'm finally getting a meeting with the mayor in a week or two, and it took 6 months of really pulling teeth, running for office, challenging them directly on camera, face to face, to actually get responses. I don't think it should be that difficult to talk to the people in office, which was the whole purpose of running, was to get us to a point where we can finally sit down and just tell you what's wrong and be heard. And we're not always going to agree on how to handle it, but man, it was frustrating. So, second point, fundraising. You were talking about how hard it is to raise funds, and it's because I think you're running for something. You're running for people. And unfortunately, all the campaigns I've worked for the past like 17, 18 years, the one that raised millions of dollars was the one that was running against someone else. It was so negative, but people wanted so quickly to be against something than they were for something. And I wish it wasn't like that. I wish that people would be more eager to be really for something than rather just against. But I hope people out there pay attention and vote for something and vote for something good and better and consider donating to causes and candidates they think can really make a difference, because
Change is okay.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, let's talk about people are like, wait a minute, where's my money going? Okay.
Sure.
When you're running a campaign, the money that comes in helps reach more households. It helps reach more people. And you're looking at flyers, you're looking at whether it's a digital ad, a billboard, a sign, flyers that you hand out, getting people to go door to door knocking for you, that all costs money. So you need to look at a campaign as a marketing campaign for a product that you want to get behind. However, instead of having years to do it, you've got a very condensed window to get that message out there and reach those people, and that costs money. So if you turn around and say, all right, well, $50 is, that's 1,000 flyers. Okay, it doesn't take a lot of money to make a large impact. And that turns around and says, all right, well, I'm going to donate $10. Thank you very much. That is a tremendous amount of money when you turn around and see what it actually does. Now look at the district size. It's over 10,000 square miles. It's massive. 8 counties and 2 partials. I've got to reach a lot of people, over 700,000 people that you want your candidate to be able to reach each and every one of those people. So in order to do that, you have to get involved. Sometimes getting involved is simple as, look, I just sent $5. That's all I got. And understand that it's greatly appreciated, no matter the amount. So moving on to talking about what's going on with District 1 is we have everything from shipping, we have agricultural, we have tourism, we have military defense, and we're not like any other district out there. We have so many different facets, and everyone's like, well, which one matters the most? There's not one that matters more than the other, because everybody in those districts has a problem. Everybody is impacted, and you don't choose one over the other. You make yourself available to listen as a representative to each and every one of those people. You've got to be available, and you have to be in your district when you're not in session at Congress. You got to be back down here. And when you are in session, you need to have the right team here on the ground at all times, so that when someone has an issue, that they can reach you. If I can't be reached, or someone on my team cannot be reached, then you need to fire me, because I'm not doing the job. I got to be accessible. That's the whole point of representing the people, is giving them the representation by being available.
What's the top issue that's being brought to your attention?
So right now, inflation, cost of living, and what's happening is things are coming down and prices are coming down. And I was just looking at the other day that this time last year, we were spending around $6 billion a day as a country as a whole. And now we're down to around $4 billion a day. So things are coming down, spending's coming down, we're saving money. We got tariffs in place. So people need to understand that the tariffs, what they're doing is they're actually generating revenue, a tremendous amount of revenue. And in fact, those tariffs, $31 billion was just given to the farmers because of those. And that $31 billion was given by Trump to offset the issue of the tariffs against them. So if we go back to 1930, 90% of our country was funded by tariffs. And then you turn around, let's look at the income asset portion of it, 1.5%. So our government was predominantly funded by tariffs for decades. And then you turn around and look at 2024, 90% of the country was funded by income tax, with 1.5% being funded by tariffs, which I think came out to about $77 billion came in from tariffs. We need to get back to the tariffs. By doing that, and the tariffs actually start funding, we'll start bringing down our debt. But we can also start looking at removing the income tax level for the American people, put more money in their pockets. In order for that transition to take place, you have to allow companies to get here and set up. Right now, north of Baldwin County, or just on the edge of Baldwin County, we have an aluminum plant going in place. It's going to put up 3,500 jobs. So we're looking at 3,500 jobs. That aluminum plant is coming back in the United States. They're looking at around $500 million in tariff cost to get that plant up and running. So the tariffs are bringing people back here. And that's a big thing, is we got to let these companies get back here and get up and off the ground. Now, I know the Trump administration is working with companies that are coming back, and some of the materials they need to stand up their manufacturing plants are tariffed. So those companies are working with him, and he's assessing each one of those and figure out how he's going to help them. But he's moving forward to help bring jobs back to the United States. And by doing so, he's increasing our general revenue and what the United States needs to bring in to reduce the level of debt.
So before we started, you were talking about the importance of farmland. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So farmland is very important to me. It goes far back in my family history with farming, and I've got 80 acres. I had a horse ranch with 120 acres. My grandparents have been farming forever, and my mom's side of the family, they have farms, cattle, maple syrup farms. So farming's big to me, and one of the things that terrifies me is to see our farmland go away.
Yeah.
I think there's $1.2 billion in District 1 alone of farming revenue, and we have around 180,000 acres of farmland. We're losing around 3,000 acres a year, and maybe as high as 7,500 acres a year if you account additional types of farmland. And what I mean by that is the USDA has a land classification level. And what that means is you've got levels 1 to 3. Let's talk about those and not get the other ones. But 1 to 3, those are soil grades that we can produce product off of. So whether they're growing peanuts or they're growing corn, that's the land grade that right there that we don't want to lose. And we are losing that to land conversion. There are House bills in place that are supposed to protect land conversion of prime farmland, but it's not stopping it.
How is that like rezoning from rural agriculture into like business or residential land?
So whether it's residential, business, industrial, the conversion over is taking place, and we need to protect our farmland. We don't have a lot of it. When you look at how much we had and what we're losing and the impact on our state's revenue, but set aside the money factor of what it generates and start looking at the human factor of farming. We have so many good things that take place with 4-H, what it does when you're raising children around the farm, the responsibility that comes with it, the family heritage of farming, and not the industrial aspect where you got these large companies like China that's coming in and buying up our farmland. That needs to stop. We need to make sure that our farmers have a future across no matter what. We've got to get behind them and make sure that they have a future. Index pricing is another big thing with farming. So when you look at index pricing, you got to understand how it works. So I'll give you an example. I think it was 1970 to current, the index price of corn has changed like 5 cents, that much. Look at the cost of the equipment to farm corn from 1970 to current.
Sure.
It's gone up exponentially. Now, index pricing is something that the government sets to offset, if we have emergencies, we have hurricanes, we have things that take place. It comes in and it helps farmers based on the index pricing. And it's so far out of whack as far as where it needs to be. That is something that I'm hoping they address in the 2028 Farm Bill. Right now, the Farm Bill from 2018, I think it just expired the 30th. So that's a big concern for me. And protecting our farmland is a big concern for me, because it's not something that you can go and make.
Right.
Land is land, and there's only so much of it. And if you don't protect what you have, we're going to lose it. And when you turn around and you've got prices and index pricing that is off, and farms that can't afford to stay open, they turn around, they end up selling off their farms. Sometimes it goes to a developer. Sometimes it goes to China. Whatever.
Why is that? Why are there what interest does a foreign nation have in buying up our farmland, would you say?
I would say that it's control of our food resources. You can look at, we could stay on farming, but I can also tell you how that plays a role in Ukraine. But looking at farming right now in the United States and Alabama as a whole, it's very important that we get behind our farmers and we protect their land at all costs. We need to make sure that our farmers have a future. I want to see generational farms continue for generations to come.
Absolutely. I don't think that our population, most of our population has any idea that we're in a very significant beef shortage right now. And a lot of people I try to bring that to people's attention on the internet, and they're like, oh, just buy chicken. I actually am chicken intolerant. I'm coming to find out I need red meat. A lot of it.
Well, we've got meat processing that I'd like to see us come back in and set up some processing plants within our district and help the cattlemen in the area. So that's a big issue that we need to address. Pasture land is another one. It kind of falls outside the 1 to 3. You still use some of it for good pasture land, but then you got with Alabama, we've got erosion and grade issues. So there's a lot that takes place. But if we turn around and we focus on the land classification and make sure that that's not getting converted, that's when we can turn around and we have to look at our housing and the growth of the community and say, okay, we understand that we're going to continue to grow. We're going to protect our farmland. So what land is available to allow us to grow? And how do we make sure that that doesn't hinder our farms?
Okay, how does that tie into Ukraine, circling back to what you were saying earlier?
So with resources. So right now we're talking about China buying resources. Mm-hmm. So I'm in communications a lot now with information that's coming at me from House members, and they're keeping me up to date what's going on. And I had some questions about Ukraine. It comes up a lot. So in Ukraine, the United States sent about, $200 billion, I believe, went to Ukraine. I have a big problem with that. I'm like, look, we're investing in Ukraine. What about American people? And I keep bringing it back. I want to invest in American people. Well, it was brought to my attention that we do have a new, obviously from the Biden administration, but under Trump, we have an audit process in place that is working. And thank God we have the strong leadership that Trump brings to the table. Because what that allowed us to do is Trump understood the level of natural resources that Ukraine has. And that if we're going to turn around and invest in that country, we're not doing it for free. So there's also a national security aspect to it. If you turn around and say, wait a minute, what happens if Russia gets access to the natural resources that can be used against us?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you got to look at it and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm not big on sending cash money over to any country. Okay, I'm very particular at making sure that that's going to give a good return on our investment, but also how do we protect the American people from that money being embezzled or illegal activities taking place with that?
Yeah.
Well, you got to be able to audit it. I was told, hey, we do have something in place. The news doesn't always go out there and give both sides of the story.
What?
Imagine that. But when it comes to Ukraine and with Russia, it is detrimental to the United States if Russia gets access to the resources that are sitting in Ukraine.
That makes sense.
So it's horrible that there's a war taking place. It's far worse if those resources can be used against the United States and hurt the American people. Trump's about America first, and I can trust in him, and so can you, that what he's doing with Ukraine has the American people's first, and that's what he's focused on, is each and every one of you. So when it comes to resources and China buying up our land, we don't want China buying our land, and we don't want wasteful spending.
Bring our dollars home.
That's right.
I was thinking about how scary would it be to China or other outside interests if we did have more farms and people were more self-sufficient and we weren't buying all these products or things coming from overseas, or we're able to sustain on our own, be it food or other like textiles or hard materials. That's probably really alarming to them. So yeah, it makes sense that they would want to try to buy land under that aspect and get up what they can so that we're still dependent.
It's a national security threat. We have other countries buying our property and coming in here and standing up, saying, hey, this is Japan land, or whatever they want to call it when they come in and put a plant up here.
I don't even know how that tracks. Where I worked at a Honda plant up in Ohio, and they said that this was Japanese-owned land, and now Japanese law applies. We're on American soil. How does that? I don't even know how that could be.
No, it shouldn't take place.
How can you have a slice of Japan in the Midwest?
Yeah, and that's a big problem that I have problems with, is the fact that any foreign nation that's going to come to the United States should not own any American property when it comes to our actual land, because at that point, you're telling me we're selling off the American country?
Right, parcel by parcel.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that. So you also have to start looking at, well, do they have the American people's interest in mind, their best interest in mind? Or is this a foreign adversary that is actually setting up inside of our territory to hurt us? But it's another avenue to look at.
I wanted to pivot slightly and ask a little bit about your background, your family, some of your personal history, because you have a very unique history. You've overcome a lot. You've had some medical scares. You've had just a really interesting background, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about that so people can get to know you personally a little better and where you're from here in Baldwin County.
Sure. So my wife's from Lucille, Mississippi, and she grew up here, graduated from Escambia, and we have 3 children that were born right here. I've been here about 15 years. Had to move away when I went to work at General Motors. I was a global strategist there. But my family, again, dates back, we're talking 1800s. So Alabama is, to me, it's the greatest state in the United States with the greatest people that you're ever going to meet. It takes everything in the United States that you think is great and you put it right here in Alabama. And to me, it means everything to be here. Alabama's in my blood. It's everything I am. And I couldn't be happier that this is my home. So we live in Robertsdale now. I have about 80 acres or so up there. My daughter and my son are going to Coastal. My daughter's in the nursing program, and my son's in pre-med. They graduated high school early. My daughter graduated high school at 16. She's worked at the wharf for about 3 years now. I've got one son that did about a year at Coastal, and he is at Fort Carson, Colorado. Is absolutely loving the military. He's in the Army. And I have 2 boys that are at App State up in North Carolina. One is studying to be an architect, and the other is doing business. Both phenomenal. So my wife, that is my best friend, and that's more of a unique story. So I came out of basic training and ended up at Fort Stewart, Georgia. And after being there for a few months, I was like, I gotta do something else. So that's when I saw a Special Forces banner on the side of a building. And it's old World War II barracks. So I go over to the building and I walk in and I see a bunch of Special Forces posters on the wall. I'm looking at them, and I walk in, and once I walk in the door, right to the left, there was a recruiter sitting there. So I start talking to him, and this young girl comes bebopping in and sits on a desk across the room. Well, I looked at her, I looked at the recruiter, and I'm like, I'm leaving, because I couldn't focus because I see this beautiful young little girl walk in. So I was like, I'm out. So I came back probably, I don't know, maybe a few days later. And I come back in and said, hey, I'd like to hear more about becoming a Green Beret. So I watched the video. I said, what do I need to do? So I had to take a IQ test that came back at, well, it was like 130 something. So I did that. He said, all right, you got to take a PT test at that. Went off to selection. There was 5 of us that went to selection, and it came back. 2 of us made it from selection from Fort Stewart. Well, I happened to be awfully young when I went through, and they did a newspaper article on me, and I was the youngest one to be selected for Special Forces from Fort Stewart, 20 years. So I went around to, while I was waiting to go to the Q course, other than going to the gym about 6 hours a day, I went to, like, back then it was called PLDC, as Primary Leadership Development Course. I went to some of those graduations and talked to them. We kind of worked with recruiters for a little bit. And I went off to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I did the Q course at Fort Bragg. And while I was there, met my wife, got married, was married for about 7 years, and had lost touch with my recruiter. We ended up realizing that in order for our children to be successful, we needed to be successful, and we realized that we were better friends than we were husband and wife. So we're still friends today. She's a great mom. But I ended up running into my wife's dad at an AUSA conference where I was invited by Camelback to come to the conference to sit at their booth with them as a Special Forces Green Beret and kind of help with some of their gear. Well, across this huge conference area, like a football field, I saw her dad, and we locked eyes. We made it all the way through the crowd. I'm talking shoulder to shoulder packed. We got all the way across. The first thing out of my mouth was, how's Jetty? And he's like, you haven't seen me in 7 years, and that's what you're going to ask? Well, 3 days later, me trying to see if he'd give me her phone number, he finally did. And I talked to her. A week later, she moved up from North Carolina, from Florida to North Carolina, where I was at the time. And a couple months later, we got married, and we've been married ever since. She's my best friend. So that's my wife. She's my rock. So.
That's awesome. I saw her post a picture of you helping a neighbor with your tractor or something earlier. I was like,
yeah. So I like to help people. We have homed 17 families in the 15 years that we've been married. We never asked for anything in return. We've always just helped people. So it's not uncommon to find me somewhere doing something for someone and never asking for a return. In fact, most of the time I'm, just, hey, how you doing? What can I help you with? And it's just who I am. It's who we are. And that's what you're supposed to do, is help people. And you don't do it for accolades or social media. You do it because that's what you do as a person.
So given all of that, I'm just thinking about society as a whole right now, especially we're in this very heated political climate where I feel like values and family and things that used to be really important are really like pressed down on the list of priorities, sadly, for people nowadays. It's part of the reason I like living here in Alabama as opposed to Pensacola, is that it feels like there's a lot more of a family-friendly environment here, and there's more morals in a way than there was where I was from in Pensacola, but that's just my opinion. How are you integrating your values into both your campaign and your life, and how are you going to, you sort of use them as principles that guide you?
Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. My wife and I have a very strong faith. Our children have a strong faith. And a lot of this campaign and a lot of what I'm doing comes from my faith. So I ended up coming down with a brain tumor. It was something that was found. They said it was one of the 6 times that I was involved in combat. And they find this on a routine CT scan. And the VA turned around and they said, hey, we think you have brain cancer. I'm like, off of a picture? We're going to go ahead and we're going to get another opinion. So for about a week, I had to deal with what they told me. And finally, we did another CT scan, MRI with contrast, and it got sent over to a doctor, and he said, it's definitely something that we need to get out. However, we don't have a baseline of how long this has been growing. It may not grow at all, and we want to watch it. So we're going to watch it for 6 months. If it doesn't grow anymore, we can kind of leave it alone. And then we'll watch it again 6 more months, turn it into a year, and so forth. It'd be a 5-year plan that they put in place. So this thing that was 3/4 of an inch turned into 1.5 inches in 6 months. They turned around and said, we want to do a biopsy. I said, absolutely not. You're not going to go under and poke at it. You're going to go under and you're going to take the whole thing out. So we agreed that's what we were going to do. Surgery turned out great. I mean, I had a phenomenal doctor, and I'm so glad for University of Southern Alabama that did the surgery. Post-surgery, it was about a month or so that I was still under the care of the hospital, and then I was released back to the VA. Well, during the time that I was under the care of the doctor, my VA doctor left the VA. And it had partly to do with the fact that most of the doctors have a caseload of around 1,100 to 1,200 patients, veterans that they're seeing, which is astronomical. They can't see everybody, and they get overworked, overburdened, and they said, look, I can't do this, and they end up leaving. That left me without any medical care at all from the VA. And I went over the next 9 months, I had 8 micro strokes and ended up losing my abilities to put a sentence together. And then I ended up with right side weakness. I was walking with a cane. And as things got worse, when this was taking place, I pretty much said, hey, let's go travel the United States and see as many states as we can, because we don't know what's going to happen to me. So this went on, and for about a year, I can set this together. We turned around one day, and I was frustrated with something I was watching on the news, accountability that obviously doesn't take place. And I turned around and I asked my wife, where are my keys? And it came out clear as day. And she turned around and said, you haven't said anything to me in 9 months, and that's what you say? So I got my speech back. Right side weakness went away. No longer walk on the cane. And that's really what pushed me to into Congress and serving, because I knew that God had something else for me.
Wow. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, what was it that you think really helped you push through it? Like,
So,
because it sounds like the medical system, I mean, it may have not been what it was, but it sounds almost miraculous in a way.
but God, He has a lot of miracles for us, and I prayed a lot, and my faith, it was put to the test. When you accept that level of faith and the plan that He has for you, and when I accepted that is when I saw the change and things started getting better. So how do I to answer your question, how do I tie in my faith into this campaign? I don't change who I am as a person. And I live through my faith, being kind to people, doing the right thing, making sure that you're going up to Congress to represent the people And no matter what, don't ever deviate from that. Don't put yourself in a position where you think that you need to jeopardize your morals, because that's not going to happen with me. I'm not the type of person that you think you're going to push over and get me to bend on my values. You're barking up the wrong tree on that one. You'll see the SF side of me come out real quick. But you need to do it for the right reasons, and my faith is far stronger than anything out there that is going to get me to jeopardize the well-being and safety of those people that I'm protecting and fighting for.
I wanted to ask, how has this made you think of a plan for VA reform? What would you do?
So the VA, they offer a lot for veterans. I know we focus on healthcare, and that is a main thing that needs to be addressed, but the VA as a whole does a lot for our veterans. There's a lot of programs out there that they do right. But right now, what we always talk about, what we always focus on is VA healthcare. So that is the area of the VA where my primary focus is to making sure that our veterans have the healthcare that they need, the mental health that they need, and not have another veteran commit suicide because the VA couldn't help them. Right now, we have to look at the number of issues that are taking place and not entirely blame any one of the workers that are at the VA hospital. Those people are phenomenal, and they're doing far more with very little than most people can imagine. So I love the people that work at the VA, and those are the people that we need to help just as much as our veterans. We have to get them the funding that they need.
So it's a matter of resource.
It comes down to resources, it comes down to the tools that they need, but at the same time, I can make a VA hospital phenomenal. But if a veteran has to get, 2-hour drive, because that's the only option, we're not helping the veteran in that case. So it's a twofold problem that we need to address. One is community care needs to be true community care. And in order to have true community care, they have to have insurance. They need an insurance card. They need to go, I'm going to go to this doctor. I'm going to go to this hospital. It is closer for me. In rural Alabama, we have a tremendous number of rural hospitals all over the place. And it's what, taking a look at the current shutdown problem that we were talking about earlier, where $9.2 million needs to come to these hospitals, and the Democrats want to remove that. That's a big problem. So let's take into consideration that we have the second largest concentrations of veterans in Alabama in District 1. I think District 5 has us beat, but we're pretty close neck and neck. So when you have veterans that have to drive 2 hours to go to a VA appointment, and to get to that hospital, they have to pass 1 or 2 or 5 on the way. And there's one veteran that I know of, he says there's a hospital 6 minutes from my house, and I got to drive 2 hours. And there's times that he's gotten to that appointment and they've had to cancel it. Mm-hmm. So you've got veterans that are getting older in age, and they don't have that type of mobility to get out there. So we need to look at how do we have mobile care for our veterans. That's one that we need to look at. Our aging veteran population needs help. Our current veteran population needs to have the right to choose the doctors that they want to know and use. There is community care out there, and you can go through community care. Here's the other problem with community care, is now a doctor says you need this medication. VA says, that's outside our requirements, our guidelines, we're not going to cover that medication. So, and that is a real case that's going on right now. I didn't just make that up. There is a veteran right now that has a lung condition and it's a combat-related lung condition, and his medication is $700 a month, and he can't get it. So, you reach out to your congressman and you ask him for help. Now, our congressman has a lot of resources, and every congressman does, to get directly into the VA and help these individuals. Helping one at a time, that's great. We are helping one at a time, but I want to help all of them. And I need to make that that is my top priority over anything, because at the end of the day, I use the VA too.
Yeah.
My son is going to use the VA. This isn't something that it's like, well, I'm going to have this health care over here. I'll be back at the VA hospital when I am done serving in Congress, and I'm going to make sure that VA hospital is doing for me what I want to do for all of the other veterans out there.
Yes.
So it's a big thing with me right now, is that veteran issue.
I had a family member shot out of a helicopter in Afghanistan by RPG, and was intending to do bad things to himself. And they had to have like a 2-week delay on their VA appointment for their mental health screening and their treatment. And so I can
2 weeks.
It affects the families. And it affects everybody.
On average, it's not unheard to have a 3-month delay in an appointment.
Yeah.
So, and then you get like a yearly checkup once a year, and half the time they get rescheduled all the time. So you'll have really, really good VA hospitals, and then you'll have ones that, I don't want to say they're bad. I think they're just understaffed. And there's the problem with staffing comes with the shortages of nurses and doctors that we have in the United States alone. And there needs to be ways that we address those medical positions and the shortages there.
Law enforcement too.
I love
It's hard to staff law enforcement. That's my background.
Law enforcement is that's near and dear to me. So we need to make sure that our law enforcement are properly compensated and properly trained.
Yeah.
When you turn around and you got someone that steps out of their door to go to work, and you have to wonder as a loved one how they're going to come home here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You should be paying them appropriately, and making sure that they don't miss training because it was a funding issue. We need to make sure that they absolutely have the best training possible.
Absolutely.
With training, you're going to get 2 things. One, you're going to be able to save their life in the event they have to draw their weapon. But also, you're going to give them the training so they don't have to draw their weapon, so they can talk to people and identify issues that, you could see someone that has a mental issue, and mental health in the United States is big. So if we can turn around and address the mental health through both the healthcare system, but also turn around and make sure we give our law enforcement the best training possible to protect them and that individual.
Yes. I worked for a very small department. I went from turned away to assistant chief in less than a year. That's just how small and the turnaround was. My training was, all right, drive around and get to know the streets. Eventually I went through the academy and I made like $9.27 after taxes.
Yeah, it's
abysmal.
When you're driving around in your car as an officer, I want you focusing on the road and everything that's around you and what's going on, and not trying to wonder if you're going to be able to make your mortgage payment or if you're going to be able to make your car payment.
My mother passed from cancer at 45 years old because the department didn't have any retirement, any health insurance. He didn't have teeth by the end of his life at 45 years old because he didn't have dental and couldn't take care of himself, couldn't eat healthy food, couldn't eat a nap.
That's, it's heartbreaking that we live in the greatest country in the world. It truly is. I've been to, I guess it was like 56 countries or something like that. So a lot. And to see the health care that we are not putting in place for our service members, all service members across the board, police, our medical, our firemen, everything out there, they need to have the best resources available, from medical coverage, from training, and pay. I mean, it's not like they're going and sitting behind a computer and saying, okay, all right, I'm going to go back home now. They're risking their lives every single day. Our EMTs, they're there to save your life, and they're risking their lives. In some of the cities, the EMTs, you think they need security, they still run right out there and will save your life, and you've got people that want to attack them.
Yeah.
ICE, look at ICE right now. You got people that are going out there and helping us get criminals out of this country, and they're being attacked and shot at and killed.
How do we go from mask mandate to masks early? That's asinine. Just
That's a control factor right there. That's what I think. I think they wanted to see how much people could be controlled. Here's a command I'm going to give you, go do it. And it comes down to the vaccines and the medications and everything else that's out there that is pushed without giving us Americans the proper information. Let us decide our medical freedom. Let us decide, give us the information we need, make sure it's accurate information, and let us decide what we want to put in our bodies. And we need to have that medical freedom here in the United States. We can never have what happened with COVID ever again.
no.
We have pharmaceutical companies out there that make money off of pushing drugs. I thought being a drug dealer was legal, but that's what it is. It's legal drug dealing, and there is far more harmful drugs out there that are being pushed than need to be. And the American people, let them make that decision. Say, hey, the doctor cannot be compensated for pushing a medical drug to a certain percentage of his patients. And, it's a medication that is supposed to help people. You either prescribe it or you don't. You don't get compensated to say, hey, I pushed your drug to 80% of my staff, patients. And the drug company's like, great, we're going to give you a bonus. Why? I'm not okay with that. I don't know if that happens all the time, is what I've been told, but that's an issue.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the pushback, at the attempts to genuinely reform that system and take harmful chemicals out of our food supply. I think that's very important. Bringing attention to the population that basic over-the-counter drugs can cause serious harm if it's taken too much. I don't know why there's so much pushback on that, except just for the pure spite and wanting to be contentious.
When you look at what's going on with, I'm glad we got RFK there. He's doing great. If you look at the medical industry, they are supposed to create medication that takes care of us, makes us healthy.
Right.
I wonder how doctors would prescribe medicine if they got paid for making someone healthy.
That's right.
So that's still something I think about.
I wanted to ask again about mental health. So I was thinking about just for the population in general, like thinking about the poor Ukrainian girl that was stabbed on the bus. There are people out there, repeat offenders, who clearly have a mental health problem. They're schizophrenic, they're bipolar, they're hearing voices, and I've experienced this in my everyday life for years. I lived a nightmare where somebody was getting committed over and over again, 12, 13 times, getting let out, getting arrested 5, 6 times, and let back out on the streets. Usually they don't have a home. Usually they're literally wandering the streets, hurting people, and for some reason they keep being allowed out and are just unable to sustain a job or whatever, yet they still get government benefits. And it feels like nobody cares and nobody's really doing anything about people who are clearly and certifiably mentally unwell, and they're allowed to harm people. What can you do as a congressman to help stuff like that we get a hold on it? Because I feel like I'm not an individual situation. There's a lot of this happening out there where people are literally just mentally ill, roaming around, hurting people for no reason.
Mental health is a problem across the country. Lack of mental health is just massive. So as a congressman, what can I do? I can help with bills and work with other members to make sure that we reestablish a mental health facilities so that we can get these people off the street, get them the care they need. Right now, we don't have those facilities. If we do, there's very few of them, and they're usually private, and they cost money to get people into them, where having something like a mental health facility in place, that is something where we are housing these individuals and treating them and determining are these people safe for society? What can we do? How long is it going to take to get these people back to where they can integrate with the American people? We can't have people running around stabbing people on drains. That was awful. That happened to that young girl. And I know our judges have immunity and protections, but at what point do we take a look at that and say, look, you've released this guy 15 times and he's hurt someone, without violating that individual's constitutional rights? Maybe we look at the judges and make sure they have the authority they need in place to hold these individuals without violating anyone's constitutional rights. So I don't want to do that, but I don't want these people running around. But at the same time, when you want a judge to hold someone that is not a criminal, where do you put them?
Get out of it.
That's what they don't have. So in a sense, we feel that we want to always blame someone. We always want to attack someone and make someone at fault. Well, everyone keeps bringing up the judges. Okay, well, where do you want the judges to put these people? We don't have the mental health facilities to hold these people, but yet we can't allow these people out on the streets without medical care. That is a problem that needs to be resolved right now. I'm not in Congress yet. That's up to the voters to put me there so that I can turn around and make sure that we get these facilities put in place.
I want to ask you a little bit about the Second Amendment. I know it's sort of in contention right now. Some people argue on the left that we have a lot of mass shootings and that guns need to be restricted. And then, of course, there are people on the right that say, no, this is our right as granted in the Constitution. Obviously, as a Republican, I would assume you fall in line with the people on the right, but tell me a little about why specifically this matters to you and what specific things you would do to ensure the Second Amendment is kept safe.
I am absolutely pro Second Amendment. 25 years at Green Beret, I've got a lot of trigger time. So I think everyone should have training behind a pistol or a shotgun or your choice of weapon, and understand that with training, there is no threat there. And guns don't go off by themselves. They go off because there's people that have mental issues that are going out there and shooting people. I don't care how many laws you try to put in place. Criminals break laws. Criminals are the ones out there that are causing the problems. Law-abiding citizens are breaking laws. So when it comes to Second Amendment, I wish everyone carried a gun. Absolutely, 100% wish everyone had a gun now. And, don't be afraid to ever use it to protect yourself. But there's plenty of classes out there that people can take and say, look, I don't, maybe they don't want, but I don't want to own one. I don't want to have one for self-defense at home. Well, let me tell you something. If someone breaks into your house, you're looking at about 20 minutes before a police officer gets there. And if you're worried about using your weapon or having it used against you, the safest thing you can do is unload that magazine with a wall of bullets. And I'll tell you right now, if they do get a hold of your gun, they're just going to beat you with it. But at least that way, you emptied the thing. And likelihood of them reaching you is going to be slim to none. I think it comes down to our safety. And when you have someone out there that is getting access to a gun, that comes down to gun ownership, and that those people, look, lock your guns up when you're not using them. Carry them on you. Know your environment. Leave it at that. Know your environment. I know my environment where I can, set my gun out of home. I know when children come around what to do with my weapons. I refer to them as weapons because someone that is trained, it's no longer a gun. It is considered a weapon. Anything in my hands would be considered a weapon for my training. A police officer, it's going to be considered a weapon. Someone that doesn't have formal training, it'll be considered a gun. And know that you need to have your guns close by. You need to have your guns locked up when kids are around. If they're not on you as a person, take the classes that are out there. Get informed. If you're someone that has never owned a pistol, there are classes out there that will give you a familiarly. Yeah, I can't talk right now. It's been late. Will give you. So there's people out there that will give you a class on weapon safety and introduce you to weapons and pistols and rifles and shotguns to let you know what you would need for the purpose that you're using it for. Maybe you want it for home defense. Maybe you want to get into hunting. Maybe you just want to go to the range and shoot. Don't be afraid to go get information. The biggest thing with people about the Second Amendment, those that are against it, is the fact that they're afraid of going out and looking at the information and becoming an informed Second Amendment exercising right person, whether it's weapons or guns or shotguns or whatever it is. I'm a pistol person. You know, I love pistols. You should have a handful of them around near me. But now I'm big on pistols. And I taught my children weapon safety when they were young. I taught them when they were young and constantly reinforced it. You know, when we have kids, absence is not safety. Keeping a weapon away from your kids is not a safe way to teach them. Okay, because at what point are they going to get access to it? You never took the time to teach them safety. So don't go and get a gun and lock it up and say, I'm exercising weapon safety. Yeah, you are, kind of, but what happens if that one time they're at a friend's house, someone that didn't lock it up, and now they have access to it? We need to have education on weapon safety for kids. That parents that say, hey, I want my kid to understand what weapon safety is. I'm not talking about having little kids go to the range and shoot them. No, I'm talking about what it means to, what a trigger does, the safety around a weapon, why you don't ever point it at someone unless you're going to use it. Weapon safety and education, it is big, and I'd love to get behind that and make sure that that's available. But at the end of the day, it's our constitutional right, and you don't infringe on my rights or anyone else's. That's right.
So to piggyback off that question that may be controversial, there's some people proposing that we take guns from trans people. What do you think about that? Is that really a thing that Republicans are trying to push through right now, for one, or is that just the media?
I don't think anyone with mental health issues should have a weapon. Okay, you have a mental health issue. That means you're mentally unstable to make a conscious decision about someone else's life. Clearly, it has been shown repeatedly that there is a mental health issue there that has to do with the chemicals that they put in their body. So, yeah, I'm okay with limiting mental health patients from having access to weapons.
100%. So I want to pivot. You want to talk about small business.
With small businesses, I believe in, capitalism and freedom, big time business freedom. So let's talk about small businesses for a minute, and then we'll talk about interstate commerce. With small businesses, to me, they're the lifeblood of America. They are what build up communities. And in order to have successful small businesses, we've got to create the environment for a business to thrive in. And in order to do that, we have to reduce the tax liability on small businesses. We have to give people an incentive that really want to take that step out and create that small business and not be afraid to do so. One of the things that I'm really advocating for is the fact that small businesses should have a 3-year no federal income tax, they can't control state, no federal income tax liability, so that they can turn around and take those funds and reinvest them back into themselves and allow them to turn around and get the legs underneath them, create the jobs that they're meant to, build up the community, and create a foothold in that community, which is what they're meant to do. They know what their community needs. I can have a large corporation come into a state, turn around and do great things, and then if they decide to leave, that leaves a hole, and those people are unemployed. So yes, large corporations do help, but the smaller businesses, those are what stay in communities. And we need to reduce the tax liability exponentially. And if you're only making $500,000 a year and you're a small business, you shouldn't be paying more than 2% taxes. There's no reason for it. There's enough revenue out there that's generated that if we're not investing back into American people, if we're not investing back into our communities, then we're not taking care of our country. And you've got companies that are from all over the world come here for our tax benefits, yet we don't extend the tax benefits to our small businesses. We hamstring them right out of the gate. They're trying to get their legs up underneath them. A lot of them don't have millions of dollars in capital to get started. So you're talking about, Joe having a coffee shop down the road and Matt over here having a pizza shop. Give them a break and let them get their legs up underneath them. That's big with me, is I want to see them have a startup opportunity. And one thing that I can't do at Impact is reducing their tax liability in the first 3 years and allow them to get off the ground.
I would also like to see, and this is probably not a congressional thing, it could be though, but some sort of incentive for young small business owners or young entrepreneurs to get up and running, because there are a lot of people that don't have the fortune of a generational wealth being passed down or a family business that they own and operate. So we're young and we're up and coming, we're trying really hard to start something, but there's so much overhead and so much taxes and fines and fees, especially in a place like, here at the beach in a touristy area where a lot of people, they say most of them fail in the first year. You're really lucky if you get past that first year. So I'd like to see young people have more of a chance. So it's not, I feel like other businesses have kind of gatekeeped the small business world. If they've been there, 10, 20 years. And when you're new and you try to move to the area, it's harder when you're young and up and coming. So most people go work for someone else. And I would like to see the spirit of entrepreneurship remain. And I think incentives for young entrepreneurs would help in some way.
Yeah, I see. I built 6 small businesses, and I understand, how hard it is to take that step out there and wondering if you're going to fail. Well, I'm not afraid of failure. I always think of that as just a step towards success, and we need to have people not afraid to step out there. And if we can do that through whether it's streamlined grants for business startups, for communities that are below the poverty line, which the poverty line, I'm astounded by the fact that we have a country and we have poverty lines. It just blows my mind. We need to have investment back in our communities, especially those that are sitting below the poverty line. But coming out of, let's talk about education for a second. We've been getting people to step out and do these entrepreneurial step out businesses. Is that our education system right now is lacking in a lot of our trades. So I want to bring trades back to high school. I want to see auto shops back in high school. I want to start teaching kids out of high school HVAC and construction and all the plumbing and all the trades out there that are currently dying. The generations that are currently do that are going away, and we have a shortage in our trades. So you can fund a hospital, but if you don't have anyone to build it, what are you doing? So I'd like to see trades come back in to our high schools, start funding those, our community colleges, make sure that we make trades just as important as college, because there are a lot of kids out there that they don't know what they want to do. And some of them are afraid to go to college, one, because they don't know the degree plan that they want to go down, but they also don't want to sign up for a $250,000 student loan that they may never pay off, or they go to college and they change the degree plan 5 times before they graduate. So I want them to have other options coming out of high school. And if someone does say, you know what, I love this, I'm going to go be a plumber. There's nothing wrong with being a plumber. Right now, you can make a lot of money being a plumber. You can make a tremendous amount of money being an electrician. The same thing with HVAC. Those are positions that we should put kids in to allow them to say, hey, I can come out and I can go start my own HVAC company. I can go around and be an HVAC tech. You get all the training that they need. Give them a chance to choose. Right now, all we do is we drive them toward college, making them say, college is your only option. What we're really doing is we're saying, college is your only option, also, here's $250,000 in debt that you may never pay off. Why are we taking kids and forcing them into a level of debt that they may never pay off, and we never gave them another option? I want to see our education system start looking back at trades and how important they are, and making sure kids have the option to do one or the other. And you know what? Maybe they come out as a plumber and realize, I want to go to college. Well, at least they've had a little bit of the real world underneath them before they make a decision on a degree plan that they may change.
Before they can go get 4 degrees like I did and then still be struggling and wondering why you did that and why you have all the student loans. I think our generation was sold this pipe dream of college being the be all end all, and how go to college and do amazing, you'll be successful. I mean, I got 4 degrees, top of my class, never below a 3.9 on any of them, and did that guarantee me success? No, it did not. Like, there is so much more that you're missing out on, and I can only forewarn the next generation. And to the credit of some states, like Florida has really improved their educational system and focused on trades. I would like to see Alabama did the same. We were just talking about before you got over here how Alabama was ranked like number 44, 45 in education, and the same with what were the other ranks we were talking about? There was a lot going on there that we could definitely improve on as a state.
With Alabama's education, the fact that there's a ranking system out there, I don't want anyone out there at all to think that anyone in Alabama is not intelligent. We have the smartest people in the country, in this state. We have some of the brightest kids out there. What we need to do is make sure that they have more options and more resources to them. I want to make sure that our teachers are getting paid appropriately. I want to make sure school of choice is actual school of choice, not a paid program that you have to participate in or qualify for. You should have the right to pick and choose, the school you need. But the fact that we have school of choice, is that solving the problem, or is that creating another problem? I think that if you turn around and say, wait a minute, why do people want to leave this school? They have the right to, that's okay. And I'm going to support that. I like that idea that you can go wherever you want. But the question I ask myself is, well, what's wrong? I think it comes down to funding. We need to make sure that schools are equally funded and have the resources to give those kids the absolute best opportunity. And we need to make sure that the teachers are compensated appropriately. You see, if someone wants to leave something, it's not because it's great. Okay? Why are not all of our schools great? What are we doing there that is causing people to want to leave and go somewhere else? Now, if you've got just underqualified teachers, I can understand. We can have a better education. If you're going to a private school, if you're going to a city school like Orange Beach that falls outside of state funding, but those schools that receive state funding, I want to see them have the best resources available, the best programs, make sure that the teachers have what they need in their classrooms, and make sure that we have enough teachers so that they're not sitting there with a class of 40 students. How is that helping? There's too many student to teacher ratio. That is also a problem. So we need to look at our education as a whole to make our intelligent children the brightest and best out there. And I want to focus on education. It's important to me, and it's the future of Alabama. And I want to make sure that our young generation isn't leaving the state and going elsewhere. And I want them to stay here. As much as I love this state, I don't want to see anyone leaving. I want everyone to come here because I know how great this place is. But again, it's the best kept secret in the United States. Pamela, keep it that way.
I talked a lot about that on my campaign, retaining young talent and getting young families to stay here. And that seemed to be something we saw pretty pronounced throughout all the areas in Baldwin County where people saying our kids and families don't have much to do in, Robertsdale or in Gulf Shores. They're all moving away to, some get jobs like Silicon Valley, or like there's other places in the country where the young people are going and bringing their families. And then it feels like retaining the young families is something that we struggle with here, and that the options are mostly for retirees and older people. And I would like to see it like you said, trickle down so that people want to stay here and they want to raise their family here, and those kids go away and want to come back, and that, remains.
So along the coast of Alabama, we have Hospital, and it's a great company. We have Airbus, which is another great company. So not only do we have shipbuilding and manufacturing, defense, we have a lot of opportunities. A lot of companies love this state. It's a great state to work in. We need to make that more welcoming and bring companies in here that are going to give high-paying jobs to our intelligent children that are growing up and make sure that they have a reason to stay here. We have to focus on why they're leaving and then turn around and we solve that. And one of the reasons you said why they're leaving is there's better jobs elsewhere. There shouldn't be. Alabama, we just picked up Space Force because we are a great state. We're bringing in drone technology to Fort Rucker. These things that are coming here and the investment that Trump is making in Alabama, it's important that everyone recognizes the same thing that he sees and that I see, is that this is the greatest state in the country.
Mr. McKee, thank you so much for being here with us today. If you're interested in learning more about him or supporting his campaign, you can visit him online at www.mckeeforcongress, MCKEE for Congress.com. Anything else you'd like to add?
Go to the website, follow me on Facebook and on X, and appreciate all your support. I want to be up there in Congress for you, not for me, for you. I want to make sure you have the best representation that you've ever had on your representation in Congress. Thank you very much. God bless you.